Welcome to Playful Beginnings, a podcast about the magic of play therapy for therapists, students, and anyone interested. In our podcast, we'll explore the deeper understanding of play therapy and the skills we use when working with children.
We hope to help you understand the why behind what we do and how it helps kids heal and grow. I'm Dr. Christy Opiola, a working play therapist and university professor in North Carolina.
I'm Dr. Maggie Parker, a play therapist and professor in DC. Hi, Christy.
Hey, Maggie. We're excited. We're all awkward this morning. We have a guest speaker, y'all.
We're so excited. We have with us Dr. Morrison Bennett, who is a play therapist, an author, and at one point a faculty member, and in practice at Austin Stone Counseling Center in Austin, Texas, and also the author of the book, The Guide to Play Therapy Documentation and Parent Consultation with Dr. Linda Homeyer. And it's an excellent book for all of our clinicians out there. It is so helpful. And I refer so many of my supervisees and students and friends to this book. So, and Mary, we're also friends, which makes it really fun to have you here.
I know, that's what makes it fun to be here.
Yeah,
thanks for having
welcome.
Yay!
Yay!
We finally made it happen.
We did.
We've been trying for a few months, but we were able to. All of our schedules aligning is not the easiest sometimes, but we're really excited to have you, Mary.
Great. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah.
Mary,
I know Maggie gave a brief introduction. Is there anything you want to add to that introduction about who you are? And
No, I have a husband and 2 kids. That's also part of who I am. I make a lot of granola and homemade sourdough bread. These are the things that occupy my time. Play therapy, picking children up and taking them places, and making granola and bread. I try and make bread only once a month. However, the last 2 weeks, people have eaten all 4 loaves, and I'm going to have to make more this weekend.
Taylor Swift.
right.
She's in her sourdough era.
Oh, well, she needs something to do. I mean, it does take 2 days. It's a whole thing. You got to schedule it.
She is not busy enough, I don't think. And so really, I was, what are you going to do with this idle time, Taylor? Come on.
Sourdough. That's the answer.
That's it.
And, it's good for you. So there's that.
Yes. That was a COVID passion of mine for a while.
Yes. Yeah. I started during COVID like everyone else, and I let it sit for a while, and then it became evident it needed to come back. So there you go.
So the biggest question is, what is the name of your sourdough starter? Because if you're a true sourdough bread maker, your starter has a name.
Okay, that's so true. And I took a class, and they even talked about how every time you feed, your starter is constantly changing. So you can change its name all the time. So Carlos, I think for a while, and honestly, I think I'm not connected enough to my starter. The kids named it, and I don't even remember. I don't talk about it. I just am getting it done. And so probably that's why my loaves look a little flat. If I would only love it, if there was more love involved. I'll be honest, this is where I'm interested in the product, not as much the process. And so
I think you should name it Stephanie. Stephanie feels like a good name.
Okay, well, maybe this round I fed her this morning. So Stephanie it is.
She's going to try it out.
I'm going to try it out. I'm going to try to be more, and maybe my loaves will be more beautiful. I went through a phase where I would get kind of depressed with how I didn't have the beautiful loaves at the bakery. And then now it's good enough. It's feeding them, and the nutrition is clearly hitting them. We're healthier, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
So,
so you heard it here.
That's right.
Stephanie,
soon there will be Bennett breads out on the market for you guys to have.
Oh yeah, Robbie can
fresh sourdough.
I know. I mean, y'all, it's such a process for me. I've even only once given away a loaf as a gift to someone because no one can appreciate how much work this is.
It's so much work.
It's so much work. I don't even give it away. I will bake you lots of other things. But
not the bread I make.
Not the bread. You cannot have the bread. So that I'm a toddler in that you can't have it. It's mine.
Which is a good segue into why we invited Mary to come speak with us this morning, as several of our listeners asked about adaptations to CCPT, and in particular with the littles, that people think you can't do play therapy with kids under 3, which is not true. And so we wanted to make sure Mary was here to kind of talk about her work with play therapy with toddlers.
And you wrote a book chapter on this. Yes. In the new CPRT edition, I did not list all of the research and book and presentations that you've done. For those interested, there is a book and a chapter on this also.
Yes, book and manual of the toddler model for CPRT. So yeah, we can talk about that. There, I think one of the things that I think about when I hear people are, well, you can't do play therapy with children under 3. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're the prime
They're the
candidates. What are
funnest in the
you?
playroom.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, they're the funnest for sure. And they're the most excited to come every week for sure. And their play is just so stinking meaningful,
Mhm.
and I think, when you work with toddlers and preschoolers, you are heavily working with parents also, right? Because if you're a parent and you're bringing your 3-year-old to play therapy, you are struggling also, whether that is your child has experienced some kind of trauma or is just having general behavioral difficulties, you are at your wits' end. People don't just flippantly bring their 3-year-old to play therapy. And so you're heavily working with parents. And so being able to open parents' eyes to help them understand how their child is experiencing the world is such a critical component in working with toddlers and preschoolers, I think, in that, one of the things I frequently say, I often refer to people who are not counselors as regular people. Because I don't know if you all are the case, but my closest friends are counselors. I'm used to other people responding to me in some kind of reflective tone. And turns out regular people don't know about child development. They think child development occurs, when you're at the pediatrician and your child is an infant and they're asking, have they rolled over? Are they sitting up? Those kinds of physical milestones. And while yes, that is child development, and that's important, development keeps going. We are still developing.
Yes.
You know,
Right.
this is important information. And the preschool, kind of that 18 months to 3 years old development is such critical information because there is just so much happening to your kid because it turns out growing up is hard to do. That's not just a song. That is the real deal.
Yeah.
And there is so much going on in their brain and their body all at the same time. They're unable to juggle all the other things we suddenly expect of them. Because,
Right.
when you think about families with a child who's anywhere from 18 months to 3 years old, they may also have a newborn.
Yeah.
They've had another baby.
Most
Yeah. And so now parents are not sleeping again. They are not thinking clearly. And they have this human in their house who can speak and do some things on their own, but yet lots of things they cannot. And these little humans lose their mind over the purple bowl.
Yes.
the green cup.
And yes, oh my goodness. And we think as parents that they have these rational skills of, well, the purple bowl is dirty. This blue bowl is the same. It's just blue. And you are not dealing with a rational human who has access to their higher order thinking skills. That doesn't exist. Yet
Yeah.
they are amazing because
Yeah.
they have these bizarre memories of an experience they had 3 days ago, or some tiny detail that happened in a book. And so then you start thinking, oh, well, they can do that. They should be able to do this. And I
Yeah.
remember a friend saying to me when her son was probably 2.5, again, I was coming to visit because she just had a newborn. I was bringing dinner, right? And she was, Ford, isn't potty trained. He can talk all about going to the bathroom. I don't understand why he's having all these accidents. And because he can talk all about it. And I was, oh, this is an important piece of parenting knowledge, in that your body can only develop in one area at a time.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
he was developing verbally. He was
Yeah.
really good. His verbal skills were growing tremendously. And he was unable to also learn how to go to the bathroom at the same.
Yeah. I think we forget sometimes too that they're experiencing the world for the first time, and all of these things are new and amazing and extraordinary experiences. I remember when my brother was little and my grandfather, his first word was wow. 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 And my grandfather, if he says wow one more time, I'm going to lose it. But that is such an encapsulation of what is happening in their little, they're experiencing all this. And they're also I'm stealing this from Dr. Becky, but they experience all of the emotions too, but they don't have any understanding or language or ways of expressing it. And so they express it in the ways that feel right for them. And that can be really hard for the adults in the space because we're lock it up, stop crying. And it's no, 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 that's not how this works. So
Mhm.
it's very interesting. I'm kind of curious because and we've never really talked about this. Your dissertation and a lot of your research was focusing in on the schools still with the same age, right? But working with teachers. So kind of what was that pivot for you and how did you start? I know toddlers were already part of that with Head Start, but what kind of made that pivot for you that you're let's bring in the parents?
I mean, I think for me, it just was an obvious thing that parents, because I had been a teacher before I was a play therapist. And so, that child teacher relationship training model was a really natural kind of shift for me because the teacher child relationship is just so critical. Kids can do anything if they have a great relationship with their teacher. And one of the interesting, this is a rabbit trail, but one of the really interesting tidbits that I learned in researching toddlers and preschoolers and teachers in particular is your relationship with your preschool teacher impacts your academics through the fourth grade.
Oh my.
I know, right?
Yeah.
If you think about it just for a minute, it's where you learn to love school and love learning and feel valued for your learning and feel you're seeing that you're learning things, right? When you think about what a pre-K kind of situation is. So that was really fascinating. But so then, I think just in a shift of working in a clinic setting, the parents are just coming in going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And then I think for me, I will say a big growth in me as a play therapist was having kids and toddlers where I was, holy moly, people are not kidding. And in fact, I was chatting yesterday with a friend who has 18-month-old twins. I stopped and I said, I remember when my oldest was 19 months old and I was still a professor at the time, but I was home with him in the summer. And I remember vividly stopping at my freezer when I was getting ice in my cup. And I stopped and I prayed for the mothers of 19-month-old twins because I felt my one
Yeah.
19 month was so hard that how on earth were these poor women who had twins doing it? Right. And
Mm-hmm.
so just know you've already been prayed for next month. And she just started laughing. And, because I think that one of the things I really experienced as a parent just with development all along is things are going great. And then your kid falls apart for 3 days and you're, oh my gosh, what's happening? Are they sick? The sleep schedule is off? Was trying to control for all. And it's probably also when I really learned that, my job as a parent isn't to keep my kid happy all the time, but also learn that it's easier for me if they're happy all the time. And so, yeah, I'm going to try and do that. And oh, wait, maybe that's not what's best for them. Maybe I need to learn to deal with a crabby kid and that's okay. And that they then get to be crabby and struggle. And my job is to sit with them in that struggle, not to fix said struggle.
Yeah. I
Because
think that's really hard.
I think that's one of the things that, parents of preschoolers and toddlers in particular often are functioning in a place where they are just trying to avoid the next meltdown,
Hmm.
right? What can we do? Let's get the right snack. Oh, don't forget the lovey, da 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 da, And one thing, we see a lot that I'm very concerned about is, parents soothing with technology.
Yeah.
Did you just see that the APA or the AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, put out a thing that children below a certain age group should not be using
They finally.
technology? Yeah, I think it just came out on Monday,
I think I
but
saw
it's
a deal on
less
that because they
than
finally said should not. Because
should
when
not
my kids were
or to the minimal degree, and they put a time frame over a month's time frame, they should have this much technology. They really are taking a stronger stance because
think,
I think there's some new research that just came out to show the impact of when we're exposing kids to too much technology too early in life.
Yeah. And I think
you
we
know,
often look at it from the brain development piece, but also it's the emotional development. You're right. Last week we talked about
Mhm.
encouragement or what
I
I
think
can't remember,
encouragement. Yeah.
but how helping them gain that grit and tenacity and that I can do hard things, I can experience hard feelings. And we cut that off at the knees when we're, oh, you're upset, or I want to go to dinner. So here's your iPad.
well, and it's how will they ever learn those things? Because as we just discussed, it's a gradual development of executive functioning skills to learn how to regulate yourself,
Mhm.
and what we're looking for, one phrase I use a lot with toddler preschool parents is, listen, we can't expect that your child will never have a meltdown. I mean, I would love to tell you that that's possible, but they're humans and that's not going to happen. But what we want to look for is a decrease in frequency, intensity, and duration. So
Mhm.
is the meltdown shorter? Is the meltdown less intense? You know,
Mhm.
and are we having them left less often? That's the setting. I think that's one of the really important things in working with parents of toddlers and preschoolers is to set their expectations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the truth is, they haven't read a development book. They have no idea what are appropriate expectations to have.
I
Helping parents especially when you either only have one kid or this is your oldest, you're like, well, he can do all kinds of things that this infant can't do.
Yeah.
yeah. I always say with my students in my class, I want you to put things into relation to how long we've been on the earth and then think about how long children have been on the earth. And if we think about that, right, it gives us a whole different perspective to understand where they are. So, when I say a week, that doesn't feel like a whole lot of time, but if I put that in a time frame of how long I've been on earth, a week really, the percentage is really not very big. But when I talk about a 3-year-old and a week and I give that percentage, that really changes how we view, oh wow, that's a really large percentage of, or a bigger percentage for them. And so
Mhm.
it makes sense. And I
Yeah.
did just pull up the American Academy of Pediatrics, and they said no screen time for children under the age of 18 months, except for video chatting.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
for children 18 to 24 months, it's advised allowing media use only if a parent sits with them,
Mhm.
and the choice is high quality content. For children 2 to 5, screen time should be limited to 1 hour per week of high quality programming.
Yeah.
Right. And that high quality, I mean, let's talk about it. As a parent of a kid that young, am I really is that how I'm using my sitting with them time?
No.
No. And so I think that's the other thing of us as parents looking at, I think often it's things I need her to blah, 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 blah. And it's, well, but she isn't able to. So how can you adjust?
Yeah.
And us as therapists having to say some of those hard things
Yeah.
and confront the parent and say, that would be easier. I get
It
it.
would be.
And being empathetic with them 100% because it is hard to have toddlers. Toddlers are hard, period. And being empathetic in that. And I think one of my jobs as a therapist is to help the parent see the world through the child's eyes, which I gather that from my time in the playroom with the kid, right? And then the other thing is to kind of help problem solve. Well, what are other ways that could look? Because, right, parents are just trying to get stuff done, right? They are trying to get out the door in the morning. They are trying to get people fed and get them in bed. These are
Yeah.
the things of and all of those are good things, right? And so helping parents kind of, well, let's try and talk through what does that look now? How could we adjust? How can we help, provide this scaffolding? If we think about Vygotsky, he would always talk about the importance of providing scaffolding for children and how we can provide kind of this way for them to climb up on their own, right? We're not doing it all for them, but we're providing kind of places for them to be safe and attempt,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
One of my things that I like to show, and it's kind of going off a little bit of a tangent, but I do think it relates, right? Of emotional regulation, our ability to bring ourselves under control, the difficulty of that for children, the ease of use of technology to do that. But there's this post by someone who, I don't want to get into the potentially like problematic things, but I use this all the time. Justin Baldoni and his daughter is having a meltdown in the middle of Whole Foods. And here's this very famous person who people know that paparazzi could be. And I know they're smiling, but where he looks calm, but they're creating safety within their space and they're letting her have that emotion. They're not stopping her. They're not forcing her out of it. They're not saying, get up. And I think sometimes that's really hard for parents because we think about who else is looking at us as opposed to what this child needs in this moment. And they needed safety and containment and an opportunity to have a calm adult around them to give them space to calm themselves down. And that sometimes looks very different than what parents want their calmness to look.
For sure. Well, because that's the other thing is we try and pull
Embarrassing.
them out of that. And the truth is, it isn't possible. I
Yeah,
just
it
get
doesn't
more
work.
mad and then I'm that mom at Target who's yelling. And the truth is, I think once you've parented, enough, you kind of realize I am not the only one whose child has had a meltdown in the middle of Whole Foods. This happens. I think sleep is something parents of young children really don't understand the importance and value of,
Yeah.
in that, about they need to sleep 12 or 14 hours at night. And that, yes, that means your kid is going to go to bed at 7 or go to bed at 6.
Yeah.
And you need to figure out how to make that happen.
It's funny because Molly had colic, if you will. I don't know what it was, but she screamed for 4 months. And I was like, what is happening?
Whatever it was awful.
It was terrible. And I also had an 18-month-old, right? So I got 2 in diapers. Oh my God. And I remember finally, I was, you know what? I'm going to try something. And instead of having her in the bassinet by my bed, I put her in her crib. Y'all, she slept 9 hours. She was exhausted. So it's sometimes just talking through some of these things. What would happen if I tried every sleep thing? Whatever. But sleep is so important. And even talking with an ENT, actually, it was, I see a lot of kids in kindergarten getting diagnosed with ADHD. And what it is that they need to have their adenoids removed because they're not sleeping. And I was, I got to make sure to tell everybody I talk to about that.
I know. And I will tell you, client use a mouth breather, emotional dysregulation in play is super healthy. We've worked through some of the sibling rivalry kind of stuff. And so then I referred them. I'm not a medical professional. I don't really want to recommend surgery for your child. That's way out of my scope. But you
Right.
need to find somebody who's a sleep expert. Yeah, sleep for toddlers and preschoolers is critical. And, one of the things my husband and I used to say that I have now in turn used with a lot of parents that I think was really helpful is, they have no skills. When they are hungry and they are tired, they don't have skills. And when you think about sitting in a chair, eating new foods, feeding yourself, not spilling, those are skills that your child has developed. And so to have expectations that they can sit at a restaurant or ride in the car and sit in traffic, when they're tired and hungry, they don't have the skills.
Yeah.
And you're
And
trying to get them not to nap in the back of the car because that
Yeah.
means they're not
Wake
going to
up, wake
nap
up,
when
wake
they
up.
get home. So you're keeping them awake and they
you
are just
are.
grumpy little Gusses back there
Oh,
because they
yeah.
are so tired.
Yes.
If you are able to have a partner, which I know not all caregivers have partners, but one thing that was really helpful for us was we kind of looked at it. I'm overwhelmed and I have to tap someone in. I need to be, and sometimes, if I was alone, Molly was having a meltdown over something for an hour and a half. Lee was not around. And so I FaceTimed my mom and I was like, I need a break for a second because I'm no longer being regulated in this moment. And so my mom FaceTimed with Molly and just kept being, you're really frustrated. This isn't what you wanted. And so having those resources and sharing some of the things that we learn in play therapy with the caregivers that are helping us, that are part of our village, can help feel more trusting and then cohesive, and then maybe avoid some of that melt.
Yeah, for
I,
sure. Yeah.
I think it's also, as you guys have talked, I feel really protective of parents too, because
Yeah,
I think they're doing the best they can and they're parenting the
1000%.
best way they know how. And that, parenting comes with a lot of shame and guilt already. And
So
so,
much.
as we're talking about parents, these are things to think of. This is us not putting
No,
added guilt or shame or, judgment on your parenting. So I just want
no.
us to, from a podcast view, I want to make sure people aren't misinterpreting what's being said here, because I know that's not the vein in which Mary and Maggie are talking. It's really about how do we support you better and how do
Yeah.
we help you see what's going on so that, because we know you want to be the ones who are the bedrock for your family and how do we support you to not feel, you're shattered in a million little pebbles in this moment. And that's really where we're coming from.
Well,
Yeah.
and Christy, I think that's such an important part of being a good play therapist is empathy for the parent,
Oh,
and knowing that every parent, and sometimes it's harder to get over this hump as a play therapist, but every parent is doing the best they can with the information that they have
mm,
at the time.
Yeah.
And I look at a lot of the things I did and I had to be like, "What? that was the best I could do for the day.
Yeah.
Your best looks different days, right? There's some
Yeah.
days where where it worked out great, and you got the schedule right. And,
Yeah.
they didn't take too long of a nap at daycare and all those kinds of things. But I think that's what I want therapists to hear is that there are a lot of things out of the parents' control. And so how can you educate parents
Yeah.
and helping them understand that these are skills their kids don't have yet so that the parent can then be empathetic, right? This is the
Yeah.
parallel process, us being empathetic with parents so the parents can be empathetic
Yeah.
with their kid, and some of that is kind of challenging parents sometimes. It's a lot of educating parents, though. Well, actually, this is what I would expect out of a kid who's 18 months old.
And sometimes that's
It's really
freeing.
normal for them to have temper tantrums.
Yeah.
It's really normal for them to have big emotions that they
Yeah.
don't have words for, right? And so it's our job as a parent is to put words to that. Oh man, you're really angry, and you want me to know how angry,
And I think that's something too that I try and remind parents when I'm working with them is listen, I teach a class on child development. I teach this class. And every time I read this book, I'm, oh, yeah, I forgot. Because when you're in those moments, life doesn't stop. And just because we have this education, which I think we're so lucky to have it, but there are breaks in it too. And so we try and give what we can that can help alleviate some of that for parents in the best ways that we can. And then try and really help them understand that this is really hard. This
I
is just
mean,
hard.
And I think the other thing is helping parents know how to advocate in the systems
Yeah.
that they live in, because
Mhm.
so many of our systems also are not very child developmentally informed. And I don't know if you guys have heard of the book, What If Everybody Understood Child Development? Straight
I
talk about bettering children's lives by Ray Pica. It's an amazing book and it's written for parents and it's
Mhm.
very digestible. Every chapter is 4 pages. And then at the end of the 4 pages, it gives you other places to get resources, which are primarily reputable podcasts, TED Talks, something where you could digest it quickly. So it's really for today's parents. But I love this book and it has great topics for toddlers as well as preschoolers and older school age children. But terrorist tots is one of the chapters. Why are we expelling toddlers from daycare centers when we know they're dysregulated human beings? That's just part of being a toddler, right? And so helping parents have words and to know how to speak up and, help not only inform the systems our kids live in, but also know what their rights are as parents. And so
Yeah.
it's a great book for anyone interested. I have my students read it in the CPRT class because I think they need to understand what resources are out there for parents.
Yeah, I think that's a critical part in working with parents of preschoolers is having your favorite toddler and toddler specific discipline parenting book, right?
Mhm.
Because I love the whole brain child. It doesn't really apply to 3-year-olds. They're not capable of being in the river of tranquility. But I love that for an 8-year-old.
Yeah.
And so being really aware of what are the books that you really, I'm with you, Christy, on that one. And I also really, there's one called Toddler Discipline at Every Age and Stage that gives
Ooh.
a little on development. And then the discipline is relational. It's very child-centered play therapy focused, but it gives some context of this is what you're to be seeing at this age, right?
Mhm.
You're to see an 18-month-old who wants independence, but yet doesn't have the fine motor skills or the large motor skills to do all the things that they want to do. And so their frustration tolerance is low. So they are going to get mad and throw things because that's all they know how to do. And
Yeah.
so then you, as the parent, coming in and being like, oh, I can see you are angry. That was hard. And teaching them to stomp a foot, they need an expression. I would rather a kid
Yeah.
stomp a foot than throw a piece of Tupperware or a car at me, kind of
Right.
thing. And so helping play therapists need to help parents kind of see those kinds of options because it just, it doesn't occur to them.
Yeah. I also love, I don't know if you've heard of Harvey Karp. He wrote The Happiest Baby on the Block, and he has a
Yes.
toddler version, and he calls toddlers mini Neanderthals that we try to talk to in high executive functioning. So you just need to speak Neanderthal. You need to be mad, 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 mad. We use way too many words with kids,
Mhm.
and illustrate. And his videos they're fun to watch, but they're also super informative for parents of young toddlers that are needing
Mhm.
support.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, so we've talked a lot about kind of what that switch was and the things that you look. Well, I think
Yeah.
this was really helpful and informative. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chrissy, were you going to say something? Well, I think
Yeah.
this was really helpful and informative. Thank you so much for coming and talking with us.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chrissy, were you going to say something?
No, I was just going to say it's been such a joy, and we often don't talk about this age group as play therapists. So I think it's a really important factor because we do get calls from toddler parents, and then it's almost, no, we just don't work with you, which is always breaks my heart because,
Yeah.
every call is a parent saying they need support. And
Yep.
where do we help send them for support if the kid therapists aren't the ones that are willing to support them?
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really confusing thing.
Yeah.
So everybody, thank you so much for having Dr. Mary Morrison. And then don't forget to either go to our website, sign up for emails, our socials, playtherapyspace.com, and we will see you again in another week.
Have a great week, everyone.